Our next speaker is the former Attorney General of the United States, the Honorable Judge Michael Mukasey, who served with great distinction in that position under President George W. Bush. Judge Mukasey.
It's, of course, both a great honor and a great challenge to step to this podium to speak to people who've come together in support of the residents of Ashraf and in the presence of Mrs. Rajavi, who has become a symbol of the aspirations not only of PMOI-MEK, but also of all Iranians, indeed of all people throughout the world who love freedom. She's become a symbol in more ways than one, not only because of her aspirations, but also because of the courage that she has had to show in pursuing them, and never more so than in recent days, when she's been asked to put the residents of Ashraf and herself on the line by supporting a memorandum that contemplates that the residents of Ashraf will move to a military outpost called Camp Liberty, formerly occupied by United States troops but since abandoned, and in fact looted by the Iraqis. This in anticipation and in the hope that they will be taken from there to refuge in other countries. This understanding places the fate of the residents of Ashraf in the hands of a United Nations that has no power to act, but only to observe and report, and in the hands of an Iraqi government that has all the power to act and has acted increasingly as a proxy for the government of Iran, and that has a history of committing violence and indeed cold-blooded murder against the residents of Ashraf. So how did we come to this, and what can we do about it? We came to this because Nouri al-Maliki established a completely arbitrary deadline of December 31, 2011 for the evacuation of Camp Ashraf, a deadline that had no basis in any other fact than that it was the date that was set by the Iraqi government. And it obviously fulfilled the desire of Iran to be rid of the residents of Ashraf, who have been a bone in their throat and a reminder to the rest of the world of the oppressive nature of the government of Iran. We begged the United States to use its influence with the Iraqi government, and we begged the United Nations to provide protection to the residents of Ashraf. Our plea to the United States has what should be the most solid of bases: reliance on the word of the United States. You will recall, and you've been told today, that in 2003, the residents of Ashraf surrendered their means of self-protection to coalition forces and received in writing the assurance of Generals Miller and Brandenburg that they would be treated as protected persons under the Fourth Geneva Convention. Each of them received an identity document like this one that assured that they would be treated as protected persons, certifying that they were protected persons, even providing them with telephone numbers to call in the event of an incident so as to contact military police. Even when control of the area was ceded to the Iraqi government in 2009, General Petraeus said that he would not have done that but for the assurance of Iraqi authorities that the people of Ashraf would not suffer as a result. Well, we all know what that assurance was worth. In 2009 and again in 2011, and both times, specifically, when the then Secretary of Defense of the United States, Robert Gates, was in Iraq, Iraqi armed forces attacked the residents of Ashraf, who were defenseless, had relinquished their weapons, and we've seen video certainly of the 2011 attack, in which weapons and military vehicles provided to the Iraqis by the United States were used to kill and maim defenseless men and women. A total of more than 47 were killed. If anyone had any doubt as to how the Iraqis view the residents of Camp Ashraf, it would have been dispelled most recently by the newspaper article that the Washington Post published this past December under the byline of Nouri al-Maliki, coinciding with his visit to the United States, in which he had the gall, the effrontery, to say, and these are the words of his article, "The residents of Camp Ashraf have caused a great deal of controversy here, meaning in Baghdad, and in the United States. Those were the words of his article. Caused a great deal of controversy? It's like saying that torture victims are causing controversy by crying out in pain, and they should be quiet because they're disturbing the peace. The reason for recalling this now is that Iraqi forces are the forces who are supposed to be relied on under the Memorandum of Understanding to maintain order and to protect the residents of Ashraf. That memorandum has many weaknesses. The United States is not a signatory. The memo itself was signed without the approval of the MEK, and Mrs. Rajavi was asked only after the fact to encourage residents of Ashraf to move to Camp Liberty in reliance on it. Although the memorandum contains a statement that the Iraqis will abide by the international principle of not returning people to a country where they face persecution, the so-called non-refoulement principle, it pointedly does not contain any guarantee against arrest under a warrant issued by the Iranian government. And as we have all come to know, even the physical accommodations at Camp Liberty are not yet adequate to sustain anyone, when such elementary facilities as electricity and running water are not yet available. And the Iraqis keep reducing the size of the available space that the residents of Ashraf may occupy, and it's now down to less than 2 kilometers from the 40 originally suggested. And it's become increasingly apparent that the accommodations at Camp Liberty will most closely resemble those of a prison. The residents of Ashraf are being increasingly restricted in the possessions that they can take with them. What's to be done? Well, obviously, one thing to be done is that we have been doing and are going to continue doing, which is coming together and making our presence known, and in the words of Nouri al-Maliki, causing a controversy. Another thing to be done is to apply maximum pressure to the U.S. government to delist MEK. We've heard repeatedly from the UN High Commissioner for Refugees that the continued presence of MEK on the State Department's list of foreign terrorist organizations inhibits even European states from receiving Ashraf residents as refugees. It also provides the Iraqis with a convenient excuse for their barbaric behavior. Again, one need look no further than the column by Nouri al-Maliki in the Washington Post. He wrote as follows. This is what he said. He said the camp's residents are classified as a terrorist organization by many countries and thus have no legal basis to remain in Iraq. No country would accept the presence of foreign insurgents on its soil. That's what he said. Of course, the reference to many countries is a blatant lie. MEK is removed from such lists in the EU and in the UK, and indeed in every country in the civilized world. The only countries that actually list MEK as a terrorist organization, as you've heard, are the United States and Iran, which tells you something about the validity of the designation. And of course, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees and the Maliki column speak volumes about what good would be achieved by delisting. It would make it possible to assure the safety of 3,400 people, whose safety is very much in peril now. I return again to the plain truth that the current predicament of the 3,400 residents of Ashraf is due to their having relied on the word of the United States. We cannot teach the world the lesson that the one thing more dangerous than defying the word of the United States is relying on the word of the United States. That would be a tragic lesson, not only for the people of Ashraf, but also for every country that considers itself a friend of the United States and that depends on the United States for its safety. Several times at these conferences, I've had occasion to quote Abraham Lincoln, who described the United States as the last best hope of earth, and have said that those words may be even more true today than when he spoke them in the 19th century. Well, there are other words of Abraham Lincoln that we must also pay attention to, and that we disregard at our peril. He also said we cannot escape history. He said we will be remembered in spite of ourselves. No personal significance or insignificance can spare one or another of us. He said that the experience that he and his fellow citizens were passing through will light us down in honor or dishonor to the latest generation. Those words were meant to stir his countrymen to be bold enough to abolish slavery. But they contained a warning, which was that if they did not act honorably and do that, they would be remembered in dishonor to the latest generation. If the United States gives its word to people and then does not do all in its power to fulfill that word, and those people suffer or die as a result, we Americans will be lighted down in dishonor to the latest generation. Delisting provides a way to help avoid that by making it easier for the 3,400 residents of Ashraf to get out safely. Another way to help is to put pressure on the Iraqi government not to do what the Iranians want them to do. We Americans here must bring about an honorable result, and we must help our government to do the same. Thank you for your attention.